There, that does it. Hey, Dad, come take a look at my Zero model now. Doesn't it look great?
You sure did a good job on it, son. Looks just like the real thing. Reminds me of the first time I saw a Zero. Did I ever tell you about that?
You mean the story about when you were at Pearl Harbor, Dad?
Yeah, that's right. I was stationed at Kaneohe Airfield. And let me tell you, I remember December 7th, 1941, just like it was yesterday. You know, we all thought that Zero was made of bamboo and rice paper, but we sure got the surprise of our lives. Well, anyway, it was early Sunday, and Charlie Dunn and I had drawn maintenance.
At midnight today, December 8, 1941, our Army and Navy opened hostilities with the American and British forces. Our victorious Sea Eagles have launched several highly successful...
These were the words which first announced to the Japanese people the fact that they had embarked on a global war. The words which heralded the saga of the Zero fighter, an aircraft whose very concept revolutionized the standards of aerial warfare. For the first time in the history of flight, a shipboard-based fighter was capable of besting all of its land-based opponents. The Zero was flown with pride by the pilots of the Imperial Navy. As an ex-Zero pilot put it in a recent interview,
Captain Kimura, as Zero pilot during the Pacific War, do you remember when your first action took place?
Yes, my first experience of combat took place at Pearl Harbor in 1941.
What were your advanced feelings about how your first encounter would turn out?
Oh, I knew we would have the advantage in a dogfight. I can remember sitting in my Zero fighter on the flight deck of the Soryu, waiting for the launch signal, with the words of our commander echoing in my ears. Expect a severe battle. Fight a brave battle. Be victorious, Sea Eagles. I was attached to the 3rd Covering Fighter Squadron, commanded by the famous Lieutenant Aida. There were 3 flights of 3 aircraft each, all flying the new Zero fighter. Although I had joined the Soryu after the operations in China, I personally felt that the Americans had no aircraft which was capable of besting my Zero in combat. The Zero had almost twice the range of our earlier Type 96 fighters, and was a real pleasure to fly. Yes, we could hardly wait to meet the enemy over Pearl Harbor.
the combat effectiveness of the Zero was a deadly surprise to the pilots flying the P-36s and P-40s in the Pacific. Although lightly armored by Western standards, the superior speed and maneuverability of the Zero enabled it to emerge the victor in almost all of its early engagements. In fact, although only 9 Zeros were lost in the Pearl Harbor raid, the majority of these were shot down by anti-aircraft gunfire rather than from aerial combat.
Our assigned target was Kaneohe Airfield. As we approached, we were met by 6 or 7 P-36s. I was flying with the 3rd V, and the P-36s were shot down before my flight even made contact. I think that the Zero fighter came as a great surprise to them.
I suppose, Captain, that you were aware of the story which circulated during the war that the Zero was made of bamboo.
This was also a great joke to us. We used to laugh and say we would shoot down enemy with bamboo bullets from our rice paper airplanes.
Were you hit at any time during the Pearl Harbor operation?
No, I did not receive any hits at all. But I remember when Lieutenant Aida was downed. After we destroyed the fighter defenses, we went down to strafe the field, and Lieutenant Aida was hit in the fuel tanks by ground fire. Although he had lost much fuel, I think personally he could have flown back to the Soryu, but he chose instead to dive his Zero into the hangar area and exploded in a great ball of flame.
On June 3rd, 1942, the Japanese tried to take Midway, to break the fighting spirit of the Allies and to force them to the surrender table. It was a key contest in the Pacific War, and the defeat of the Japanese forces at Midway signaled the beginning of the end of the supremacy of the Zero fighter. Then, inevitably, the Zero lost its role as the fighter supreme of the Pacific, with the advent of better Allied aircraft, such as the Hellcat or P-51 Mustang. Even then, the Zero fought on, diving to its death in every flight as the kamikaze.
Of course, towards the end of 1944, my Zero was outclassed terribly by your latest fighters. And this, with the shortage of spare parts and fuel, gave us a great feeling of frustration. At this time, I was based in Yokohama, and when the Go Out and Fight banner was flown, we all raced to the flight line to be sure of having a Zero to fly. Every hour or so, the alarm sounded, and there were always fistfights among my fellow pilots when two of them reached the same aircraft together.
The destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki sounded the death knell of the Zero, accomplishing what the combined efforts of all the Allies in the Pacific could not. The day of the Zero was over, but the concepts of naval air operations which were pioneered by the brave men who flew the Zero will always remain. Mention the word Zero to any veteran of the Pacific War, and once again the exploits of the Sakais, Aidas, and Kepfords come to life, reminding us of the times when the Zero truly controlled the skies, from the icebound Aleutians to the slopes of Mount Fuji.